You stand at the edge of a vast and empty landscape, the wind sweeping across a place untouched by time. Here, in the stillness of the air, a name echoes faintly: Viracocha. The sound shivers through your spine, slipping into your soul, as if it were a secret meant to be forgotten. But this name, this god, refuses to be forgotten. It lingers always on the edge of memory, like the faintest ripple in an ancient sea. Viracocha. One, his name means the great god or the creator in the old tongue of the Andes. Yet, this mighty figure, once revered as the architect of the heavens, the earth, and the first humans, now fades into the shadows of history, forgotten perhaps by most but not by you. No, you have come to listen to the whispers, to unravel the forgotten threads of this god's tale. For his legacy is not gone. It sleeps, waiting to be awakened by those few who still dare to seek it. In the trembling silence of the night, you hear the soft rustling of ancient stones, their surfaces worn by centuries of wind and rain. These stones were once touched by the hands of the people who worshipped Viracocha, those who saw in him the embodiment of all creation, the god who shaped the world with his will. They spoke of him as the one who emerged from the darkness, bringing light to the world, and who walked across the waters to create the first humans, breathing life into their clay forms. His was a power unmatched, a force that touched every corner of existence. But then he disappeared. Why? How could such a god vanish? Theories abound, but none truly answer the question. Some say he ascended, leaving the earth to its own devices, while others whisper that he was forgotten, his name erased, his worship buried beneath the ashes of history. Yet there are those who still remember. Hidden away in forgotten corners of the world, in sacred ruins and sacred scrolls, his name lingers. Viracocha is not dead, he waits. You feel the weight of this truth, and with it, the burden of seeking out that which has been lost. The mystery is more than just a search for knowledge. It is a call, one that reverberates through the very fabric of existence, urging you to follow, to understand, and perhaps awaken him once more. Before you delve deeper into the tale, a gentle reminder: if you have found yourself here in the embrace of the unknown, then you too are drawn to this sacred journey. Do not turn back. If you are still listening, still here, I ask of you this: subscribe, and leave a comment below. For these whispers must be heard by those willing to listen. It is not just about the story of Viracocha. No, it is about the ancient wisdom that flows through these words. For this knowledge has been hidden for too long. Viracocha, the name of creation, of light and darkness, of beginnings and endings. This is his story, and it is now time to listen, to understand the god lost in time. Now, let's get started with today's story. You stand before Tiahuanaco, a place where the gods once walked. The wind carries the scent of ancient earth, of stone and dust, a reminder of a time when this land was alive with the voices of the divine. This city, lost in the mountains, is as much a mystery as the god it once honored. The stones here, dark and weathered, speak of an era that is no more. But even now, they hold secrets. Their surfaces etched with symbols that no one has fully understood. It is here, in the heart of this sacred land, that you feel the first pull of Viracocha's forgotten legacy. Tiahuanaco is the name of the place where Viracocha was worshipped in his most pure form. In the shadow of the Andes, at the edge of Lake Titicaca, the heart of the Inca Empire once beat. The ancient city, a marvel of stonework, remains as a silent witness to the god it revered. Here the skies meet the earth, and the waters are said to be filled with the spirits of the gods. Yet, despite the grandeur of Tiahuanaco's past, something is deeply wrong. The city, despite its spiritual weight, is abandoned. There are no rituals here anymore. Only the cold stones and the empty air. And those stones, they are not ordinary. They carry secrets, carved into their surfaces by hands long gone. The most famous among these carvings is the Gate of the Sun, an immense monolith that once framed the heavens, its intricate carvings depicting cosmic cycles, stars, and deities. The gateway, thought to be a door to another world. Whispers of the arrival of Viracocha, the god who walked the earth from the sky. But what of the other symbols carved into the rocks? What of the dark images of serpents and spirals, of beings that seem neither human nor God? These symbols are forbidden. To speak of them aloud is to invoke a silence that can never be broken. Some believe they are the traces of older gods, gods that Viracocha either supplanted or destroyed in his ascent to power. These forgotten gods are not meant to be remembered, yet their presence lingers in the ruins of Tiahuanaco, like the shadow of a god who once ruled over all. And there is something unsettling about the way the sun seems to set. Here it does not set as it should. It sinks slowly, as if the heavens themselves are reluctant to move forward, holding on to the last whispers of the god who created them. But what happened to Tiahuanaco? How did a city so rich in spiritual power, once the center of a thriving civilization, fall into ruin? The theories are many, but one stands above the rest. The city, they say, was abandoned after the disappearance of Viracocha. Some believe the people lost faith in their creator, casting aside his teachings. Others whisper that the god himself left, taking his power with him. And then, in the wake of his absence, Tiahuanaco collapsed, as if it had lost its soul. The empire fell, and with it, the name of Viracocha faded from history. But you know something others do not? The city may be abandoned, but it is not empty. The spirits of the past linger here, and among them, the god waits. Somewhere in the dust of Tiahuanaco, hidden in the silence of the stones, there lies a secret waiting to be uncovered. If only you can see it, if only you can hear the whispers that have been buried for so long. The air shifts as you walk further into the heart of the forgotten city. The silence, thick and heavy, seems to hum with the faintest pulse. You can almost hear it, the whisper of creation itself. The teachings of Viracocha, passed down through generations, are inscribed in the very fabric of this place. Yet, as you come closer to the sacred ruins, you realize that even the teachings are not as clear as they once seemed. The God who created the world, whose very word shaped the cosmos, speaks through the stones, but the message has become distorted over time. Viracocha, the creator god, is said to have spoken the world into existence, calling forth the sun, the moon, and the stars with a single word. In the ancient myths, he is not just a god, but the origin of all things born from the void, or perhaps even the void itself. He crafted the earth from nothing, shaping mountains from dust, filling rivers with water, and breathing life into the first human beings. His presence was seen as the force that held the world in balance, the hand that guided the fate of every creature that walked the earth. But the word of creation is not as simple as it first appears. Over time, the understanding of Viracocha's role in the birth of the world has become clouded, obscured by layers of interpretation and shifting belief. The Andean peoples spoke of him as a god of order and creation. But there were other gods who predated him, gods who were swallowed by his rise. And in the shadows of these ancient myths, a forbidden belief grew. What if Viracocha was not the first god at all? What if he was merely a part of a greater cycle of gods, an eternal wheel of creation, destruction, and rebirth? Some speak of the old ones, gods who existed before the rise of Viracocha, whose names are now lost to history. These gods are said to have shaped the world in their own image, but they were erased from the annals of time when Viracocha ascended. Some scholars believe that Viracocha was not a singular deity, but rather a composite figure, a reflection of older, forgotten gods who were amalgamated into one. The mysteries surrounding Viracocha's true origins are manifold. Was he born of the earth, as the myths suggest? Or did he, too, emerge from the great void? A fragment of an ancient divine cycle that had already been set in motion long before his name was ever uttered. You feel a tremor of unease as you consider this possibility. Viracocha may not have been the creator at all. Perhaps he was a servant of a higher force, a messenger who walked the earth to bring forth the world, only to return to the void from which he came. But why would such a god, a being of such immense power, allow himself to be forgotten? Why would he relinquish his dominion over the world, allowing his name to fade into myth? The first teachings, those ancient words that were once spoken by Viracocha himself, have been buried beneath centuries of shifting beliefs. But in the ruins of Tiahuanaco, you know that somewhere there lies a clue, a fragment of the original word of creation, waiting to be discovered. What is the true nature of Viracocha's power? Was he a god of order, as the people believed? Or something else? Something far older and darker? A reflection of a world that had forgotten its true origin? The answer, it seems, may lie in the forgotten rituals, those practices that were once considered sacred, but which were lost when the faith of Viracocha faded into obscurity. Some say these rituals were too powerful, too dangerous to be allowed to continue. They whispered of a dark magic, a forbidden art that allowed those who practiced it to commune with the god himself. But even the act of speaking his name, Viracocha, was said to be a dangerous endeavor, for it invoked a power beyond mortal comprehension. What would happen if one were to perform the ancient rituals once more? Would Viracocha's name be spoken again, awakening the god from his long slumber as the sun dips low on the horizon, casting long shadows over the ruins? You feel the weight of these questions press upon you. The world of Viracocha is not as it seems. The more you delve into the mysteries of his existence, the more the lines blur between creation and destruction, between the known and the unknown. The teachings of Viracocha were never meant to be understood fully. His word was never meant to be spoken in its entirety. What you are uncovering now is not just a history of gods and men, but something deeper, a truth that may be better left unspoken. The warmth of the sun's rays on your skin is comforting, but there is something unsettling about its light. It feels as though the sun itself is watching you, following your every move. The ancient Andean peoples who once revered Viracocha saw the sun as the physical embodiment of his power. It was said that Viracocha's light illuminated the world, his divine presence embodied in the rays that bathed the earth. Yet now, as you stand beneath the sun's gaze, you can shake the feeling that there is more to this celestial body than the simple warmth it provides. The sun, intimately tied to Viracocha's creation, was more than just a source of light for the Andean civilizations. It was a deity in its own right, the most sacred manifestation of Viracocha himself. The Inca, who inherited the spiritual legacy of Viracocha, believed the sun to be a reflection of his power and wisdom. The sun god, Inti, was worshipped as a direct descendant of Viracocha, the one who brought warmth and life to the world. But beneath this adoration, there was a darker truth, one that the priests of the sun did not speak of. The sun, it is said, was not just a giver of life, but also a keeper of secrets, a silent observer of the gods' rise and fall. The sacred language of the sun is not something that can be easily understood. It is said that Viracocha, in his first act of creation, spoke to the sun itself, imbued with a divine knowledge that transcended mortal understanding. Those who learned the sacred tongue were able to commune with the sun, to call upon its power to shape the world. The sun's rays in this language were not simply beams of light. They were the breath of Viracocha, the very essence of creation itself. And the rituals performed in the presence of the sun were said to unlock hidden truths that were not meant for mortal eyes. But these secrets are not without their cost. To speak the sun's language was considered heretical by some. It was believed that the sun, in all its power, could not be fully understood by the human mind. The priests who ventured too far into this sacred knowledge were said to have vanished without a trace, their bodies never found. Some believe they were consumed by the sun's light, their souls forever trapped in its fiery embrace. Others claim that the sun itself is a keeper of forbidden knowledge, that to look too closely at the source of all creation is to risk losing oneself to madness. You've heard the legends, whispers of those who dared to understand the sun's true language. They were said to be both blessed and cursed, gifted with visions of the world beyond, yet burdened with a knowledge that no mortal should possess. As you stand beneath the sun's harsh gaze, you realize that the language of the sun is not simply a gift. It is a challenge, a test of whether one can bear the weight of creation itself. And so you wonder, will you too listen to the sun's sacred language? Or will you turn away, knowing that some truths are best left in the dark? There is a stirring in the air, a feeling of something long forgotten, as though the very earth itself is breathing in rhythm with your thoughts. The sky above, once calm and still, shivers with a strange anticipation. You've come to understand the stories of Viracocha, the teachings and the mysteries, but there is more. There is a promise that has endured through centuries of silence. A whisper that has traveled across time, the Creator will return. The Andean people spoke often of this return, of Viracocha's promise to return to the world when it was in need. when darkness and chaos had once again overtaken the earth. It is a prophecy that hangs in the air like a fog, dense and heavy with meaning. The idea of Viracocha's return is both a hope and a warning. A hope that the world will be renewed, but a warning that when the time comes, the earth will have forgotten the name of its creator. In the ancient tales, it is said that Viracocha's departure was not one of violence or loss, but of choice. He had created the world, shaped it with his hands, and breathed life into its people. And then, when the world had been set into motion, he withdrew. Some say he traveled east, leaving his children to tend the world he had crafted. Whisper that he ascended to the heavens, his power now part of the sun, part of the stars forever intertwined with the very fabric of the universe. But the promise remains, hidden in the sacred texts, carried in the breath of the winds. Viracocha will return, the elders would say, her eyes gleaming with a quiet understanding, and when he does, he will restore the balance. He will come in the time of darkness, when the earth is on the brink of collapse, and he will speak the word of creation once more. This prophecy, however, is no simple tale of a god returning to right the world. There is a deeper, darker element to it, a forbidden truth buried beneath the surface. The ritual to invoke his return is not one to be taken lightly. It involves not only calling his name, but also performing acts of creation and destruction, balancing light and dark in the most profound and dangerous ways. To summon Viracocha is to invite the unknown into the world once more. The ancient rituals are complex, involving sacred offerings. It's prayers spoken in the forgotten language of the sun, and sacrifices that blur the line between life and death. The people who once performed these rites believed that the god would not return unless he was truly needed. The world had to fall into chaos. First, its corruption must reach a peak hand, only then would Viracocha answer the call. Restoring order, but perhaps at a cost no one could anticipate. Some of the most secretive and forbidden knowledge about these rituals is buried in the ruins of places like Tiahuanaco, where the echoes of those who once sought to summon him still linger. It is said that on certain nights, when the stars align just right, the air around the sacred ruins becomes charged with an electric tension, an invisible current that carries the weight of forgotten promises. On these nights, those who are brave enough or foolish enough can hear the faintest sound, the whisper of a god who has been waiting for the moment when the world will need him most. But what if the world isn't ready? What if Viracocha, like some forgotten spirit, chooses never to return? Some say that the god waits for a world that will no longer remember him, that he is content to remain in silence. Others believe that the god has already returned, in a form so subtle that no one could possibly recognize him. Is he the sun on the horizon, the earth beneath your feet, the whisper of the wind at your back? Or is he waiting in some distant, hidden corner of the world, waiting for the one who dares to call his name? The promise of Viracocha's return is more than a legend, it is a haunting, a truth that refuses to die, lurking in the silence of forgotten places. And you wonder, as you walk among these ancient ruins, if the time is near, will the god return? Or is it only a promise to sustain the faith of those who still dare to believe? And if he does return, what will that mean for the world? Will the god of creation restore the balance? Or will his presence signal the end of all things, as some fear? Will the world be reshaped in his image? Or will he find that humanity, in its endless search for meaning, has drifted too far from the truth? The answers, like so much of Viracocha's story, remain buried beneath the surface, hidden in the folds of time. You feel that you are on the edge of discovering something, a truth that may change everything. The god's promise is both a beacon of hope and a shudder of fear, waiting to be realized, or perhaps never to be spoken again. You walk now along a broken path, once a sacred road trodden by those who sought the wisdom of the gods. The road is worn, eroded by time and neglect, but you can still sense the presence of those who walked before you. Their footsteps, once sure and steady, now seem like shadows in the dust. The path they followed was not just a physical one, it was a journey into the heart of the divine, a search for a god who may never have left. And yet, the wanderers continue their search, even as the world around them crumbles into darkness. The wanderers, those who once sought Viracocha, were not just pilgrims or travelers. They were seekers of knowledge, of divine truths that could not be found in the everyday world. These were the souls who felt the pull of the unknown. Those who believed that the God who created the world still lived among them, hidden in the folds of time. They searched for the secret, the key that would bring Viracocha back, to restore balance to a world that had lost its way. But the paths they followed were not always clear. The rituals they performed were not always successful. Some of the wanderers returned, their minds shattered by what they had seen, while others simply vanished, never to be heard from again. What drove these people to walk so far, to venture into places no mortal should go? What knowledge did they seek, and what did they find in the dark corners of the earth? Some say that the wanderers were searching for the god's heart, the seat of his power. Others believe they were looking for the hidden teachings of Viracocha texts and artifacts that had been sealed away to protect them from those who would misuse them. But one thing is certain, the wanderers were not looking for just any god. They were seeking Viracocha, the creator who shaped the world. The god who had the power to reshape it once more. The paths they walked were not just physical roads, or spiritual journeys. Each step, a descent into the unknown, each choice a gamble with fate. And as you walk the path they once walked, you begin to understand why they kept going. There is something in the air here, something that calls to you, just as it called to them. The path is broken, yes, but the search continues, for the promise of the god's return has not been forgotten. And perhaps, in your search, you will uncover the answer that so many have sought. The fog rolls in from the mountains, obscuring the world around you. In the distance, the faint outline of a village appears through the mista. Village forgotten by time. It's untouched by the rush of modernity. You feel drawn to it, a magnetic pull, as though the very land itself beckons you closer. This village, lost in the heart of the Andes, is a place few know of, a remnant of the ancient world. And within it, there are whispers of a tribe that never forgot the name of Viracocha. Hidden in the highlands, beyond the reach of the empires and kingdoms that came and went, lies a tribe whose worship of Viracocha remained unwavering, even as the god's name faded from the rest of the world. These people, cut off from the rest of civilization, maintained their sacred rites, their devotion to the creator god, untouched by the hands of time. To the outside world, they are a mystery and enigma wrapped in the mist of the Andes. This tribe believes that Viracocha never left. To them, he did not ascend to the heavens or disappear into the void. No, they hold that the god remains among them, watching over the land and guiding them in silence. Their faith is not one of memory, but of living presence. They speak of the god as though he walks beside them, his power still alive in the world. They say that Viracocha's spirit lives on in the mountains, in the rivers, in the winds. To them, the god's return is not a prophecy, is a constant, a part of their daily life. But what of the world outside? What of the centuries that have passed? The civilizations that rose and fell? In their isolation, the lost tribe has kept its faith in Viracocha, but at what cost? There are those who would call their beliefs heretical, who would say that such devotion is a fool's errand, that the god they worship is nothing more than a shadow of the past. And yet, the tribe endures, their devotion unwavering. They carry the god's name in their hearts, and through their rituals they keep the flame of his presence alive. As you approach the village, you are struck by a sense of reverence in the air. The people here do not speak of Viracocha with the same distance that others do. They speak of him as a living, breathing force. Their rituals are not just acts of remembrance, but acts of communion. In their ceremonies, they seek not only to honor Viracocha, but to draw near to him, to invite his presence into their lives. The symbolism of their worship is not just about honoring the past. It is about sustaining the connection between the god and the people, maintaining a bond that has not been broken by time or distance. The rituals are ancient, but the faith is alive. In their eyes, you see something that has been lost in the world, a certainty that Viracocha is real, that he walks among them still. But there is something even deeper, something more profound in their beliefs. They hold a forbidden truth, one that the outside world would never accept. Some members of the tribe claim that Viracocha is not a single being, but a presence that exists in many forms. The god is not merely a creator, but a part of the very fabric of existence itself. He is the sun and the moon, the earth and the sky, the breath of life that flows through every living thing. To the tribe, Viracocha is both creator and destroyer, an eternal cycle of birth and death, of creation and dissolution. This belief, held in secret by the tribe, is a dangerous one. To suggest that Viracocha is not an external god, but an internal force, a divine presence woven into the very nature of the world, would challenge everything the outside world holds to be true. It would shatter the foundation of the gods themselves, the very idea of creation. And yet, in the misty highlands of the Andes, this belief is held with the utmost reverence, passed down from generation to generation. The tribe's faith in Viracocha is more than a relic of the past, it is a living, breathing testament to the gods' enduring presence. But as you stand in the village, you realize that their isolation is both a blessing and a curse. They are the last to remember, the last to hold the sacred flame of Viracocha's name. But what happens when the rest of the world forgets? What happens when the last of the worshippers is gone, and the name of Viracocha fades completely into silence? The lost tribe of the Andes may hold the key to restoring the gods' presence in the world, but they are also a reminder of what happens when a faith is lost. The god waits in silence, but for how long? And when the time comes for the world to remember, will anyone still be there to answer the call? The ground beneath you shifts, as though the earth itself is trembling. You feel a shiver in the air, a sense of something ancient and powerful stirring beneath the surface. The gods of old, the ones forgotten by time, awaken in the depths of your mind. They are the ones who came before Viracocha, the elder gods, whose names have been lost to the winds of history. Before Viracocha, there were other gods, beings whose power shaped the very foundation of the world. These elder gods are not known by most, their names buried beneath layers of myth and legend. But their presence lingers, like shadows that never fully fade. It is said that Viracocha was not the first god, but rather the last of a line of divine beings who ruled over the world before him. Some even whisper that Viracocha's rise to power was not one of creation, but of destruction, that he erased the elder gods, casting them into oblivion, so that he could take their place. The idea that Viracocha may have been a destroyer, not just a creator, is a heretical thought, but it is one that has persisted in the darkest corners of history. Some ancient texts suggest that the elder gods were not vanquished, but merely hidden away, their power sealed beneath the earth, waiting for the right moment to rise again. And in the ruins of Tiahuanaco, in the forgotten temples of the Andes, there are whispers of symbols that do not belong to Viracocha, but to these elder gods. These gods were said to be beings of great power, shapeless forces, older than time itself, whose names could drive men mad if spoken aloud. They were not gods of light, like Viracocha, but gods of shadow, of chaos and destruction. Their power was raw, untamed, and they ruled over the earth in ways that mortals could never comprehend. But their reign was ended when Viracocha emerged from the darkness and cast them aside. Now their names are forbidden. To speak them is to invite madness, to invite a curse that can never be lifted. Yet the symbols remain hidden in the stones of ancient temples, waiting for someone to unlock their meaning. The mystery of the elder gods is one that has yet to be solved. Were they real, or were they just the figments of an ancient people's imagination? Did Viracocha truly destroy them, or did he simply take their place in a cosmic game of creation and destruction? As you stand at the edge of this forgotten world, you cannot help but wonder, if Viracocha was the last of the gods, then what happened to the others? Are they still out there, waiting for the right time to return? And if they do, what will they bring with them? The answer is hidden beneath layers of myth, lost to the winds of time, but you can feel it just out of reach, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The evening air carries a sense of forgotten knowledge, of untold stories lingering just beyond your grasp. You find yourself drawn to the ancient quippascords and knots that once spoke in the language of the gods. They hang in the shadows, woven with intricate patterns and symbols, each knot carrying a meaning, a secret. The quippas were not just tools for record keeping. They were vessels of knowledge, perhaps even of divine communication. But now, they are fragments, relics of a time when the gods still spoke directly to their people. The Quipuan ancient system of knotted cords used by the Andean peoples was more than a mere counting tool. While the world outside the Andes viewed it as a method of accounting, the people who created it knew better. The quipu was, in many ways, a sacred artifact, a divine code that held within it the keys to understanding Viracocha's true nature. It was said that the cords, with their carefully tied knots, could speak of the future of the gods and of the hidden truths of the universe. The quipu was not just a record of human life, but a way of recording the divine. Some scholars believe that the quipu was used to communicate with Viracocha himself. In the ancient rituals, it is said that the priests would weave certain patterns into the cords, calling upon the god's presence, asking for his guidance, or even for his return. The knots themselves were sacred, believed to be imbued with the power to summon the god's spirit. The more complex the quipu, the more profound its message. It's not a symbol of life, death, and creation. But as the centuries passed, the quipu fell into disuse, replaced by the written word. The knowledge encoded in the knots was lost, its true meaning obscured by time. Many quipas were destroyed, while others were abandoned, left to gather dust in forgotten temples. Those that remained scattered across the mountains and valleys are now considered cryptic relics puzzles, waiting to be solved. Yet, there are those who still believe that the quipu holds the key to unlocking the secrets of Viracocha's return. Some say that hidden within the cords lies the divine language patterns of knots that, when properly deciphered, can summon the god's spirit. Others believe that the quipu contains prophecies written in the language of creation itself, foretelling the moment when Viracocha will return to the world. But this knowledge has been lost, erased by time, by the collapse of empires, by the destruction of sacred texts. Still, the search continues. Adventurers, archaeologists, and seekers of forbidden knowledge scour the mountains of the Andes, hoping to uncover a quipu that holds the truth. And sometimes, in the quietest moments, you feel the pull of these ancient threads. The cords vibrate with the faintest hum, as if they are alive, waiting to be understood once again. Could this be the key to unlocking the god's return? The quipu be more than just an artifact, but a direct link to the creator himself? There are whispers, too, of a hidden quipu that contains the full knowledge of Viracocha's creation. This sacred artifact is said to be sealed away in a temple lost to time, guarded by ancient rituals and by the very fabric of the earth. To find it is to find the god. But such a journey is not without its dangers. The quipu is not just a record of the past, it is a symbol of power, a power that can shape the future. To hold such knowledge is to be responsible for the fate of the world. To open it is to risk summoning a force that may not be controllable. A force that could either restore balance or destroy everything in its path. And yet you cannot shake the feeling that the quipu holds the key. There is a subtle energy in the air, a pull that urges you to seek out the hidden knowledge, to find the cords that will unlock the truth. The quipu calls to you, its knots woven with the whispers of Viracocha, waiting to be unraveled. As you gaze upon the quipus before you, you wonder if you are ready for the responsibility they carry. Do you dare to unravel the ancient knots, to speak the language of creation once more? Or will you, like so many before you, leave the secrets buried, untouched, lost to the sands of time? The answer, it seems, lies in the cords. And perhaps in your hands, the divine language will once again find a voice. The water stretches out before you, dark and endless, as if it were a mirror reflecting the night sky. You stand on the edge of the world, where the land meets the vast ocean, the boundary between the known and the unknown. This is a place of deep power where the gods once walked, and where Viracocha is said to have begun his work of creation. The sea is not just a body of water, it is a gateway, a place where the gods and mortals meet. And beneath its surface, there are secrets that have never been uncovered. Viracocha's connection to the sea is one of the most profound aspects of his myth. It is said that when he first came into existence, he walked across the waters, bringing life to the world. The sea was not just a body of water, it was a symbol of the god's power, a reflection of his ability to create and destroy. In some versions of the myth, it is even said that Viracocha created the first humans from the sea's foam, breathing life into them as he had done with the world itself. But the sea also holds darker truths. It is said that the god's true power lies beneath the waves that in the depths of the ocean. Hidden from mortal eyes, there exists a place where the god's essence resides. Some believe that Viracocha's disappearance was not a departure at all, but a return to the sea, to the place of his creation. Others whisper that the ocean itself is a realm where Viracocha still exists, watching over the world from the depths, waiting for the right moment to emerge. As you stand at the edge of the sea, the air heavy with the scent of salt and the sound of the waves crashing against the shore, you feel the weight of these secrets pressing upon you. The ocean is not just a physical boundary, it is a spiritual one. A place where the lines between the gods and the mortal world blur. And as you peer into its dark depths, you wonder, is this where Viracocha's power lies, hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered once more? The sea, it seems, holds many secrets. It is a realm of creation and destruction, of life and death. And perhaps, just as the god walked across its surface in the beginning, he now waits beneath it, his power dormant but ever present. What lies beneath the waves? What knowledge, what power does the ocean hold? The answers, like the sea itself, are vast and unfathomable. You stand before a forgotten temple, its stone walls weathered by centuries of wind and time. There is no sound here, only the stillness that echoes in your bones. This is a place untouched by the hands of modern men, a sanctuary where the past lingers in every crack and crevice. The Temple of Silence, as it is known, was once a sacred place where the people would come to commune with the gods. Now, it is a tomb, its halls empty and silent, waiting. Waiting for what? For the gods' return? For the world to remember? For something darker still? The Temple of Silence is a place where the veil between the mortal world and the divine is thin. It is said that this temple was built in the final years of Viracocha's active worship. When the world began to turn away from the old ways and toward new gods, the temple itself is simple, almost stark in its design. There are no grand carvings, no elaborate depictions of the gods. Instead, the walls are bare, save for a few symbols that are not of Viracocha, but of something older, something forgotten. It is said that within these walls, the priests of Viracocha would come to meditate in silence, waiting for visions of the god to fill their minds. The Temple of Silence was a place where the faithful could hear the god's voice, where the thin air would carry whispers of the divine. But as the centuries passed, these whispers faded, growing fainter with each passing generation. The god's presence was no longer felt here. The silence grew deeper, and the temple was abandoned, left to crumble in the shadow of time. But still, the temple endures. It stands as a monument to the god who was once worshipped here, but also as a reminder of what has been lost. And within its walls, there is a forbidden truth, a symbol that is not meant to be seen by mortal eyes. A cross-like figure woven with serpents marks the center of the temple. This symbol is not of Viracocha. It is an older symbol, a sign of the elder gods who predated him. The serpents coil around the cross, their bodies twisting in eternal struggle. A representation of creation and destruction, life and death. This symbol is forbidden. To look upon it is to invite madness, to risk unearthing a power that was sealed away for good reason. But there it is, carved into the stone, hidden in plain sight. Some say it is a relic of the original creation, a symbol of the forces that Viracocha erased when he ascended. Others believe that the serpents represent the darkness that followed the light, the chaos that Viracocha could not control, and that he chose to leave behind. The question then is this: why was this symbol placed in the Temple of Silence? What was it that the priests of Viracocha were trying to protect, or perhaps to hide? Was it a reminder of the old gods, or was it a warning of something greater, something that has been forgotten and should never be remembered? The temple in its silence holds its own answer. It is a place that carries the weight of secrets too terrible to bear. As you step into the temple, the silence wraps around you like a blanket, cold and heavy. The air feels thick with the presence of the past, as though the walls themselves are listening. You approach the center, where the forbidden symbol lies. The serpents seem to coil and writhe beneath your gaze, and for a moment, you wonder if they are alive, if the symbol itself is somehow a living thing, a part of the world that never truly died. But as you stare into the depths of the symbol, something changes. The silence deepens, and you feel a shiver run down your spine. The walls seem to close in, the shadows growing longer, as if something is stirring in the dark recesses of the temple. The weight of the silence becomes unbearable. pressing against your chest, suffocating you with its ancient power. You feel as though you are being drawn into the very heart of the temple, into the place where the world began, where it will end. What lies at the heart of this silence? What is the true meaning of the forbidden symbol? Is it a reminder of the elder gods who were lost, or is it something even older? Something that existed before even Viracocha's time? The answers, like the temple itself, are shrouded in darkness, hidden from view, waiting for the one brave enough to seek them. But be careful, for the silence here is not empty. It is filled with the echoes of forgotten gods, and the truth they hold may be more than you are ready to hear. The winds howl through the ruins, carrying with them the faintest echoes of the past. You stand amidst the remnants of an empire once mighty, now broken. The stones that once held the weight of a great civilization now lie in ruins, half buried in the dust of time. This is the aftermath of a world that once knew the name of Viracocha, a world that believed in his power and his promise. But that world is gone, erased by forces beyond comprehension. The empire has fallen, and with it, the god has faded into myth. The fall of the Andean empires, the Inca, the Tiahuanaco, the Wari, was a catastrophic event. One that left behind not just the physical ruins of cities, but the spiritual collapse of a people. These empires were built upon the worship of Viracocha, who was seen not only as the creator of the world, but as the god who held the keys to order and balance. To lose him, or to lose faith in him, was to lose the very foundation upon which the empire rested. But what happened to cause the fall? Some say it was the arrival of foreign invaders, the Spanish conquistadors, whose arrival marked the beginning of the end for the Andean civilizations. Others argue that the collapse was self-inflicted, that the people of the Andes turned away from Viracocha and embraced new, foreign gods. The records are unclear, and the myths have become muddled with the passage of time. But one thing is certain. The god's absence from the world led to a spiritual void that could not be filled. The people, in their desperation, abandoned the faith that had once held their world together. The true nature of Viracocha's disappearance is still a mystery. Was he abandoned by his people, or did he choose to leave them, retreating into the silence of the mountains or the depths of the sea? Some say that the god withdrew, unable to bear the weight of a world that had lost its way. Others believe that his absence was not a choice, but a consequence of the collapse of the empire itself, a sign that the god's power had waned, that the earth was no longer worthy of his light. As you walk through the ruins, you can almost feel the weight of that loss, the loss of a faith that once guided an entire people, the loss of a god whose name once commanded the heavens. The world of Viracocha is gone, and with it, the hope of a spiritual restoration. The empire that once thrived has fallen, and there is no one left to call upon the god who created it. The question now is, can the empire ever be restored? Can the god's name be spoken again? Or is it lost forever, buried beneath the ruins of time? The sun dips low on the horizon, casting long shadows over the vast ruins that stretch before you. As you walk through these ancient stones, you feel as though you are stepping into a world that no longer exists. A world whose echoes have been swallowed by time. The Inca, once the children of Viracocha, built their empire upon the god's name. Yet as their civilization crumbled, so too did their words. The sacred texts, the prayers, the knowledge of Viracocha, they are all lost, hidden, corrupted. But somewhere, within these ruins, there are clues. Whispers that still linger, waiting to be uncovered. The Incas were the last great empire to hold Viracocha in reverence. Their relationship with the creator god was complex, a mixture of deep respect, worship, and fear. Viracocha was not just a distant deity in their eyes. He was a part of their very existence. To the Inca, Viracocha was the god who brought order to the world, who created the sun and the earth, and who gave life to the first people. His name was spoken in reverence, his image adorned the temples, and his wisdom was the foundation of their laws. But what happened to the words of the Inca? What happened to the sacred texts and prayers that once celebrated Viracocha's power? The Inca, for all their might, left no written record of their faith in Viracocha. They relied instead on the oral tradition, passing down their beliefs through stories and songs. But as the empire fell, so too did the transmission of these sacred truths. The Spanish conquerors, upon arriving in the Andes, burned the written records they found, while the oral traditions were silenced by fear. What remains then? Are fragment snippets of ancient prayers and texts that have survived in the hands of the few who managed to preserve them. Some scholars have sought to reconstruct these lost words, but much has been corrupted, lost, or misunderstood. The true nature of the Incas' worship of Viracocha remains hidden, a mystery that may never be solved. It is said that this text, written in the ancient language of the sun, holds the key to understanding Viracocha's true nature. Some believe that it was hidden away by the last of the Inca, sealed in a sacred temple, protected by a curse that no outsider can break. Others claim that the text was never meant to be found, that it was written in a language so ancient, so sacred, that to decipher it would be to invite the wrath of the gods. These forgotten words are not merely a record of a god. They are a map and invitation to the divine. The words of Viracocha, once spoken by the first priests, contain within them the power to call the god back into the world. But these words are not for everyone. Only those who can understand the sacred language can unlock their true meaning. The knowledge contained within them is not simply information. It is a force, a power that could reshape the world itself. But where is this text? Is it hidden within the temples of the Andes, guarded by centuries of silence? Or is it scattered, its fragments buried beneath the surface, waiting for the right seeker to piece them together? The answer may be closer than you think, for the words of the Inca are not truly lost. They are only waiting to be heard again. As you stand in the ruins, a chill runs through you. The sun's last rays dip below the horizon, and with them, the world seems to shift. The stones beneath your feet feel alive, as if they are pulsing with the energy of forgotten knowledge, waiting for someone to speak them aloud. But be careful, for the words of the gods are not to be taken lightly. To speak them is to invite their power, to call upon forces that may be beyond your control. And yet, you feel the call of the divine is unmistakable. The words are there, hidden in the silence. The question is, will you be the one to uncover them? The stars shimmer above you, ancient and cold, as you stand on the edge of the world. The night is deep and the wind carries the scent of the earth, the scent of things both alive and dead. You feel the weight of time itself pressing down upon you, as though the world is holding its breath. The sun is set, and with it, the promise of Viracocha's return grows fainter. And yet, there is a sense of something else, something older still, lying in wait beneath the surface of the world. Viracocha, the creator god, the one who shaped the earth and breathed life into humanity, has he truly left, or is he merely waiting? The stories say that he will return in the time of darkness, when the world is in need of restoration. But what if that time has already come and gone? What if the god is no longer waiting for the world to remember, but is instead sleeping, waiting for something more? There are those who believe that Viracocha's absence is not one of abandonment, but of choice. That the god, having created the world, has chosen to rest, to sleep in silence while the world unfolds as it will. The world, they say, must go through its cycles of destruction and rebirth. Only when the time is right, when the chaos of the world has reached its peak, will Viracocha awaken to restore the balance. But until that moment, he sleeps beneath the earth, beneath the seas, beneath the stars. Its essence, they claim, is not gone. It is simply dormant, waiting to be called upon again. But how can we call upon a god who sleeps? How can we awaken a being whose power is too vast, whose presence is too overwhelming to comprehend? The truth is, no one knows. The question of Viracocha's return is both a promise and a riddle, a paradox that has plagued those who seek him for centuries. Some say that the key to awakening Viracocha lies in understanding the cycles of time, in deciphering the forgotten words of the ancient texts. Others claim that the god has already returned, but in a form so subtle that no one has recognized him. Perhaps he has returned in the form of the sun, or the wind, or the sea. Perhaps he is in the very fabric of existence itself, waiting for the world to remember him once again. And yet, as you stand at the edge of the world, you cannot help but wonder, is the god truly asleep, or is he simply waiting for the world to wake up? The answer, it seems, is hidden in the silence. But the silence, like the god, is vast and eternal, a mystery that may never be fully understood. The wind stirs, carrying with it the faintest sound, like a whisper on the edge of your consciousness. You turn, and for the briefest moment, you think you hear it, the name, Viracocha, the call of the god. Soft, yet certain, echoing through the air. It is not a voice, not a word spoken aloud, but something deeper, something older, pulse that vibrates through the very earth beneath your feet. The promise of Viracocha's return has echoed through the ages, passed down from generation to generation, whispered in the dark corners of forgotten temples, etched into the ruins of lost cities. But what if that return is not one of fire and brimstone, not one of grand miracles and apocalyptic events? What if his return is far subtler, far more profound? Some believe that Viracocha is not gone, but rather hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right moment, the right people, to remember him. Perhaps his return is not something that will shake the world to its core, but something that will occur quietly, in the hearts of those who are willing to listen, to seek, to call upon the God's name once more. The rituals to summon him are not simple. They are complex, laden with ancient prayers, sacred offerings, and a willingness to accept the unknown. And yet, despite the danger, despite the uncertainty, the call to bring the god back is impossible to ignore. You stand at the threshold, the wind whispering Viracocha's name, and you know that the time has come. Whether or not the god answers, whether or not the world is ready for him is uncertain. But the call has been made, and somewhere, hidden beneath the layers of time, Viracocha waits. And if you listen carefully enough, you might hear at the faintest whisper, the beginning of a new cycle. It's the promise of a god who has never truly left. The stars seem to pulse overhead, their distant light reaching across time, across space. You stand still, eyes fixed on the endless sky, feeling the weight of eternity pressing down on you. The winds, soft yet persistent, carry the last whispers of the god. Viracocha's name lingers in the air, as though the very universe is waiting for you to speak it aloud once more. And yet you don't. You listen instead to the silence, to the space between the words. The god is not gone. The god has never truly left. As you look upon the ruins, those ancient remnants of civilizations, long past, you realize that Viracocha's story is not one of distant memory. It is a living thing, woven into the fabric of the world, etched into the stones, the waters, the winds. The world has forgotten the god, yes, but the god has not forgotten the world. Perhaps he does not need to return in grand gestures or apocalyptic signs. Perhaps the return is quieter than that. Perhaps it is in the stillness of a prayer whispered under the shadow of a mountain, or in the light of the first rays of the sun, as the world begins again each day. The answers may never be clear. The texts may remain lost, the rituals forgotten, the paths to the divine obscured by time. But still, the god waits. As you walk away from the ruins, as you leave the temple, as you stand before the sea, you know this truth. Viracocha is not absent. He is present in every breath, in every wave that crashes against the shore, in every stone that remains where it was placed centuries ago. There are more gods. There are always more gods. The next whisper is older still, but only for those who truly listen. If your candle hasn't gone out, then you're probably ready for the next god.